So this guy, upon entering this little country store, he was a stranger. He noticed a sign on the door. It said, big, bold letters, "Danger! Beware of dog." And it was posted on this old weathered wooden door. The guy walked in, and he looked down, and he noticed this old like hound pooch sitting there staring at him with red eyes by the cash register. And the stranger asked the owner of the store, Is that the dog there that supposedly we're supposed to be aware of? And the guy goes, "Yep, that be him." The stranger couldn't help but ask the guy. He says, "That certainly doesn't look like a dangerous dog to me. Why on earth would you put a sign up like that?" "Because," the owner replied, "before I posted that sign, people kept tripping over him." Yeah, I like to laugh at my own jokes. Have you ever felt like that poor old country dog? Like you're just sort of hanging out at the quaint little country store, but nowadays that quaint little country store is more like a super Walmart, right? There's so many distractions nowadays vying for our attention that we can be stretched really thin and lose focus of what's really important. I mean, we're constantly bombarded, right, by sensory stimulation, whether it be on our phone, the TV, you name it. People are always wanting a piece of us, if you will, so that we can get stretched thin and we can lose our motivation to follow Jesus and to strive to be more like him, which we know we will never achieve until we get to heaven and meet him face to face. It's not easy to be a disciple of Jesus these days, and frankly, it never has been. It never has been easy. A disciple, one definition would be a student of the master. You are a student of the master, and you represent him with distinction and dedication and delight, the 3 Ds. And then the 4th D, sometimes doubt, because we all doubt. Jesus used that word, disciples, 3 times in today's gospel reading. And he wanted to challenge all of his followers to roll up their sleeves and join him without regretting the journey or the loss. Without regretting the journey or the loss. Yes, the loss. And you're like, the loss? I don't understand. Tell me more. I would bet that every single person in this room, at some point in time, you have been persecuted for your faith. I don't mean put to death. I don't mean firing squad, any of that. But I guarantee every person in this room can think of one time when you've been put down or persecuted for your faith. I remember one, and I think I've shared it before. You guys know I sell books on eBay. I sold a book to a guy on eBay. He'd already paid. It was already paid for. Now, in the old days, you could get a hold of people on eBay, and they'd say, "Hey, get a hold of me off eBay, and let's do a little something a little better. Can we do a little better, right?" Well, those days are like long gone. But back then, you'd have people's email addresses. So this guy had bought this book. He'd already paid for it. Before I shipped it, I sent him an email. Well, if you've ever seen my emails, it says, "Grace and peace, Pastor Roy Robbins, Christ Lutheran Church," and then there's a Bible verse. I think it's God has given us not a spirit of fear. That Bible verse. Man, probably less than 5 minutes later, this guy says to me in an email, "Cancel that order, you child molesting freaking pastor idiot in your Christian faith." And I was like, what just happened? I mean, this dude just like went off on me because of the tagline on my email. He just assumed that I was like a child molester. Well, I had 2 choices at that point. Old Roy would have like gone off on him, probably threatened him physically. New Roy basically just said, you know what New Roy did? I just canceled the order. He told me to cancel the order, and I just canceled the order. That was the last I heard from him. But man, oh man, I got to admit, I was taken aback by that. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that do not like Christians, but that one seemed like a little bit over the top. I bet you guys can think of something too, and it probably isn't even that hard for you to do. We also read in today's gospel, this is what it said in verses 25 through 26. Large crowds, we know by this time, were traveling with Jesus. And turning to them, he said this, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Well, those verses are actually fairly controversial due to the critics' assertion that it's anti-family. Look at this Jesus guy that you guys love. He's telling you to hate people. It pits children against parents. It splits brothers and sisters and divides husbands and wives. The surest way for people to leave the church is for the pastor to preach passages like this without any explanation. Because, come on, let's face it, we have enough issues in the family today, right? It could break up the family. Money, that's usually number one, right? Social media, lack of time. We're all pulled so thin, families often suffers. We certainly don't need our pastor, our Christian religion, to drive the family further apart. We have to understand here, and in other instances, that Jesus is using hyperbole or exaggeration statements to hammer home his point. Remember when Jesus said, if your eye offends you, what did he say? Pluck it out. You really think he meant to do that? No, that's another example of hyperbole. He's going for shock to get a point across. And the word hate that he used certainly is not used in the emotional, relational, or literal sense that we use it in today. There's a Bible scholar named I. Howard Marshall, and he's one of the most foremost scholars on the book of Luke. And he said this about this passage. He said, hate here means to love less. Therefore, not psychological hate, but more renunciation. The other interesting thing about these passages we know is that large crowds had followed Jesus. And why? A lot of them were like thrill seekers. A lot of them were like, it was like going to the circus or a carnival. What miracles is this guy going to do next? Remember in Mel Gibson's The Passion? You remember Herod? He was like this goofy kind of guy. All he wanted Jesus to do was play with it. You know, show me a miracle, man. Why are you here? I don't want to judge you. Just come on, let's have some fun. Show me a miracle. And that's what a lot of these people were following Jesus because they wanted to see what this guy's going to do next. They really did. When are you going to restore Israel? When are you going to bring your kingdom that you keep talking about here on earth? He'd already brought it, by the way, but they missed that. In other words, they were saying to Jesus, what's in it for us? But Jesus warned that fair weather crowd, and he said there will come a time when they will have to choose between him and family, and sometimes literally choose between him and family. We all know that in many parts of the world today, following Jesus is no longer controversial. In many parts it is, or divisive or perilous. In Jesus' time, it absolutely meant death. The religious climate at that time would not allow you to remain silent or neutral. The cost was high. That's what we talked about in the gospel. The builder needs to count the cost before taking on a project. The cost was high then and now, often now. But we are counting that cost and we're proceeding because we see the fruits of our efforts. Like a true follower, we are diehard fans of Jesus Christ. And speaking of diehard fans, at one of the Super Bowls, there was a lady sitting there, and there was an empty seat next to her. And there was a guy there, and he was like blown away by this. He goes, he's like, what's up with the empty seat? And she goes, oh, it was my husband's, but he passed on. And the man said, I'm very sorry to hear that, but I'm a little baffled why your family, somebody in your family or one of your friends did not ask you to jump, man, to have the chance to grab that seat that your husband would have used. She says, beats me, man. They all insisted on going to the funeral. See, I like to laugh at my own jokes again. We know the family, disagreement in the family is a historical fact. Past, present, future. Family can be a safe harbor in life's storms. Sometimes, though, family can be a stumbling block to our following Jesus. And this is what Jesus said back in Luke 12 about this exact thing. And this is, once again, sounds counterintuitive. He says, do you think I came to bring peace on earth? I mean, after all, isn't that what we thought? Isn't that what we sing at Christmas? Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Jesus here says, do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be 5 in one family divided against each other. 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. What Jesus is doing here is warning in a very exaggerated way, hyperbole, warning of the distractions and the potential pitfalls of discipleship. Even family may get in the way of following Jesus. See, many Christians appear to be active, but they're not going anywhere. They're not gaining ground or making headway in their commitment. You see, because we've been bogged down a lot of times by the trappings and the good things of life. And the fact is, disciples of Jesus, disciples will suffer. Disciples don't hang out in the rarefied air of an ivory tower looking down upon their kingdom. Disciples usually suffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I know a lot of you know, was imprisoned and eventually executed for doing what he felt was his fulfillment of his calling to follow Jesus. So he openly taught against the tyranny of Hitler's regime as anti-Christian. He paid the ultimate price for his faith. And it was sad, too, because it was like right before the war ended is when Dietrich Bonhoeffer was hanged for being a whatever, treason or whatever. He paid the ultimate price. Dietrich Bonhoeffer knew the cost of discipleship. As a matter of fact, he wrote a book called The Cost of Discipleship. And he wrote that book from a German prison cell. Giving up everything to follow Jesus means sacrificing your time, talent, and treasure. And you know, Janet, you heard, and people that have gone through Trucillo, that very first talk, those ideals, that's what is being you can tell a follower of Jesus by their time and treasure and talents. They're using them for the kingdom. Giving up everything means giving up all the selves, self-ambition, self-centeredness, and self-sufficiency. The verb give up means letting go or loosening your grip on, to latch on to nothing except for Jesus Christ. And often, interestingly enough, the ones who are rich towards God are not necessarily the wealthy, but the average and the poor, like the widow's wife, like the widow's mite. The disciples and Jesus were in the temple, and they heard this little cling, little ding. Oh, and Jesus was like, that woman just gave everything she had. Look at her. She's blessed. She's blessed. She gave from nothing. She gave everything. And that's sort of what we're being asked to do. Disciples didn't get it, though. They walked out of the temple and started once again marveling at the beauty of the temple. And Jesus is just like, oh my goodness, you guys just don't get it, do you? There's a $1 bill that met a $20 bill. And the $1 bill says to the 20, what have you been doing? Where have you been, man? I haven't seen you around. The 20's like, oh, man, I'm living the good life, dude. I'm going everywhere. He goes, I took a trip to the Bahamas, the Caribbean, Greece, came back to the U.S., went to the Super Bowl, went to the Stanley Cup. Man, I am living high on the hog, bro. How about you? The $1 bill sighed. He just sighed and put his head down and goes, You know, same old stuff, church, church, church. Yeah, a little stewardship gig there. But Martin Luther, our buddy Marty, Brother Marty, right up there on the speaker. There's that's been up there for the longest time. Martin Luther said this: a religion that gives nothing, costs nothing, and suffers nothing is worth thank you, nothing. Now remember, this last part of it, I'm tipping my hand here because this is the very end. I want you to hear, not like I'm lecturing you, but like I'm talking to you, because I'm putting myself in there too. Are we disciples and servants of Jesus Christ who are on a real mission, or are we just on a little picnic like the one we have planned out in Pray and Play Park? Are we a spectator, just kind of watching, or are we a pilgrim on the way of knowing more about Jesus? Do we bear the cross daily or rarely? You see, the thing is, the minute we walk outside those doors right there, we become missionaries. You're like, what? I'm a missionary. You are. We all are missionaries. We always think of missionaries like going to Tanzania or Rwanda. No, we are. The minute we walk out those wooden doors right there, we become missionaries. Right here in our own community. You see, the fields are ripe. The fields are ready, but the workers are few. Are we willing to take up our cross today and truly follow Jesus? In Jesus' name, amen.